This video's nothing but crazy HOA stories, and we're starting with the big one. I led a revolution against our petty HOA board, posted by Deleted. My wife and I moved into a 64 townhome community that was 10 years old at the time. The HOA board was comprised of 5 members that were original homeowners when the community started and had been the sole board members since the community started. Their sense of entitlement was that crazy. They thrived on their quarterly walkthrough of the neighborhood as they would write up every single home for some kind of violation, regardless of how minor the offenses were. Everyone gets a violation letter. Our first letter, the first month living there, was that our garage door paint was starting to peel. It was a 2-centimeter scrape where the panels met. It needed to be repainted, the siding needed to be power washed, there was a patch of green moss behind a bush, and the sliding door on the deck was dirty. There was dirt on the bottom of the door from recent rain. And it needed to be washed. We had 30 days to fix the issues or begin accruing a fee of $25 a day until they are resolved. I asked around, and everyone gets these ridiculously petty letters every quarter. No matter what you did to maintain your townhome, you were going to get a letter about something. As this was going on, none of the major items the neighborhood needed fixed were addressed. After a decade since the construction, the ground had settled unevenly, and many homes had standing water issues where it wouldn't drain after a storm. The rainwater would sit for 5 to 7 days in people's lawns. And more importantly, there had been a legal fight with the town since the community was started about our road being dedicated, meaning the town was responsible for snow removal. Our HOA dues included paying for our own snow removal, which we shouldn't have to, and we were paying an attorney for 10 years to fight this with no resolution in sight. Fast forward 2 years, and a few of us had enough and decided to band together to replace the board at the next annual meeting. The existing board got wind of this and hit us all with pages worth of issues with our properties, since if you have outstanding issues, you are not in good standing with the community, thus cannot run for a board position or even vote for those running. This petty move brought the community even closer, and we all spent the weekend before the meeting helping each other clean out their HOA honeydew list. We took pictures, documented everything. Then we had the US Mail certified delivery of each packet with the completed list and photos to the HOA board who lived 75 feet away. Come board night, oddly enough, the lawyer was there to give an update that no progress had been made with the township on dedicating our road. He stuck around as we moved to the elections for the next board. We brought our signed petitions to add our names to the ballot. The board says we're not eligible as we all have outstanding issues with our property. We call BS with our receipts from the post office that they received our completed list with documentation. They reply that they haven't reviewed them yet. We tell them that's not our problem and we are in good standing. The lawyer overhearing this states that we are eligible to be on the ballot if we can confirm the issues with our homes were resolved prior to the meeting. The HOA president glares at the lawyer, but the lawyer just shrugs, saying, the rules are the rules. With the exception of the 5 existing board members voting for themselves or each other, we are voted in nearly unanimously to replace them. I lead the revolution because I was tired of the petty BS when there were real problems in the neighborhood. Sadly, the rest of the elected board members vote me as president. I have no idea what I'm doing. But we spent the next few sessions removing all the dumb violations from most of the neighbors. We went through the bylaws to really focus on what's important. What happens next? Ends up that the lawyer was a friend of the previous president and was in no hurry to resolve anything as he was enjoying our excessive bill. I notify him if it's not resolved in the next 6 months, we're finding new representation. He was actually good at his job when pressed to do it. He won the case. The town appealed and tried to drag it out. He fast-tracked the appeal as it had been going on for 10 years, and we won the appeal too. The town dedicated our road, and then the lawyer pressed that it should have been done years ago. It wasn't him slowing things down, but the town. He ends up getting us a settlement from the judge for back pay on us paying the snow removal that the town was responsible for. We ended up using that settlement to have French drains installed across much of the community to clear the standing water issues. With the money left over, we fixed a lot of the neighborhood issues that the HOA should have been doing the whole time. Fences and sidewalks in disrepair, replaced dead trees and shrubs, and so on. Yeah, it was great getting all of that done without having to hit our capital reserve fund. I remained president until we moved a few years ago. Our family began to outgrow the townhome, and now we live in a new, larger development with a new HOA. I was asked to run for a position on it, and I replied, "Not a frickin' chance, but I will lead a coup if I need to." An update on the HOA president. One minor update on what happened to the former HOA president that I replaced. The original HOA president, a 50-year-old male, wasn't actually eligible to be president. He wasn't on the mortgage. The townhome was in his mom's name. No one knew because he held the books. The best was at the next annual meeting. He shows up with his petition to try and get his position back. I tell him in front of the other 60-plus homeowners that he can't even be at the meeting, let alone vote or be on a ballot, as his name isn't on the property. But his mom is eligible if she wants to. That was embarrassing enough for the entitled little jerk. HOA board member threatening to sue the HOA if she's voted out or removed. Posted by Sweet Snowy. I live in an HOA in Georgia, and we have 3 HOA board members. They were voted on last year, and they are the first elected members since our neighborhood finished development. Let's call them Scott, Jerry, and Karen. I just had a long conversation with Jerry this morning. Anyway, apparently a bunch of our neighbors talked to Scott and wanted to remove Karen from the board because she's very controlling, has called the cops on the neighbors countless times regarding minor parking issues, which she, herself, or her guests violate from time to time, and basically thinks she owns everyone. And she recently installed 7 cameras outside her house. Not sure if it's to monitor everyone or for her safety. Our area is super safe. But my impression is, it's for the former. Most want her off the board now. For the record, I personally don't have any beef with her, and I don't know all the issues our neighbors are complaining about, but I don't agree with how she's handled some situations. But then, when Scott filed a petition or something to remove Karen, nobody showed, I guess? But that leads me to what Jerry said Karen said about leaving the HOA board. She said that she's been keeping a list of all violations that she's seen since coming on the board, minor or major, and she will sue the HOA if she's voted out or removed from the board. I guess she heard about this petition or whatever it was, but can she blackmail us like this? Again, I never had personal beef with her, but I would and will vote for someone else next election time, and I'm reeling a bit about her threat. So again, this was all relayed to me. I didn't hear it from Karen herself, but is there anything we can do? Even without my vote, she'll definitely be voted out next time. I'm not on the HOA, and I do not want to be, nor do I have the time, but her threat is not sitting well with me. I do plan on thoroughly reading the HOA rules again as well, since I haven't read them since we bought the house. Curious if anyone's dealt with something like this before and what the outcome was. Do you agree with this commenter's answer? Since she's playing that card, the HOA should have its own attorney. It should also have liability insurance for its board members that will step in with defense attorneys when the board is sued. There are attorneys that specialize in representing community associations. Jerry and Scott should consult that attorney and get an opinion on whether a lawsuit would have any chance of success. My guess is that it won't, but I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, can Karen really be pulling this kind of crap? What do you think? Bought a no HOA home. Neighbors says there is one with updates. Posted by Bunny Girl 420. We bought our house a couple of months ago, and in the description it said no HOA, and we never signed any HOA documents. The CC&R say there will be an HOA created, but there never was one created, and they were made in 2005. Yesterday, our neighbor, who we only met the day before, came to our door and said there is an HOA since we do want the neighborhood to look nice, but we don't want to pay fees for it. Then we pointed out how some houses are completely unkept, and she went on to complain about those, but they still haven't fixed it, so that makes me think she's bullcrapping. I see other houses with Zillow descriptions with no HOA right next door also. This is Washington State. If I didn't sign any papers and it still shows on Zillow no HOA in the description, am I safe and this lady's just unhinged? Thanks for any feedback. I'm a first-time owner and I'd never buy a house in an HOA. Update. The title company confirmed the HOA was never established, and in our deed, the seller specifically stated it's no HOA. Neighbors who have lived here for 10 years say there's no HOA. Other neighbors who just moved here also had her come to their house, and they also say they signed nothing for an HOA. New neighbors requested paperwork for the HOA from her and received nothing. It seems that this lady is just trying to enforce the CC&Rs, which is fine by me since I already signed and reviewed them. Final update. The situation's resolved. She made a neighborhood association that helps during Christmas and July 4th stuff, and she calls this an HOA. She's also trying to tell people what to do, but there is no HOA. Yeah, legally, if there is not one, you don't have to go by the rules. Nice job, OP. Overly restrictive HOA rules, posted by Bart84. I just bought a car from a woman who lived in a neighborhood where the HOA does not allow auto repairs. I wanted to install brackets on the front bumper of the car so I can tow it with my truck using a flat tow bar without having to use a dolly or a trailer. But I had difficulty that day cutting the metal bumper, so I told her that I needed to get the dolly after all, but the rental place wasn't open until 7 a.m. the next day. She flipped out and threatened to call someone to tow it if I didn't get rid of the car by 8 a.m. I ultimately removed the car using a dolly that next morning, which in hindsight was a much more convenient option anyway. But what shocked me and opened my eyes is how restrictive this neighborhood is. It seems to be an upper-class suburb, and residents are very aware of everything that goes on and will complain at the smallest hint of something that they don't like. What I was doing wasn't a repair, but an addition of a feature to a car. I guess that nuance can easily be missed. But I found out that the HOA already threatened to fine her that morning, probably because one or more of the neighbors complained. Either that, or she made it up to pressure me to remove the car ASAP because she didn't trust that I would keep my word. Regardless, I realized that I would never want to live in a neighborhood where neighbors are watching your every move and ready to report a complaint to the HOA at the first hint of something that they don't like. I can see the value in these rules because it ensures a good-looking and crime-free neighborhood. But oh my goodness, I would never feel comfortable living in such a place. I live in a downtown area where none of this is a concern. I can fix my car in the street as people do all the time and not get any negative feedback. I plan to move to a house with more land and a garage for me to do auto work as I please anyway, but I never knew these restrictive neighborhoods existed. It taught me a lesson to choose wisely the next area I move into. Do you agree with this commenter or are they wrong? Some HOAs are crazy, many are not. Yes, you should be careful about what the CC&Rs are of the area in which you're viewing homes. What do you think? Home accidentally excluded from the HOA by Rural Nublet. My wife and I recently moved into a new build and we received a letter saying that our home was excluded from the HOA by mistake. The letter asked us to voluntarily join, but didn't really say anything beyond that. As it turns out, an entire section of the neighborhood was accidentally excluded from the HOA, roughly 25%. I guess the covenants weren't attached to the homes before they were sold or something like that. All of the homes, including ours, were originally intended to be in the HOA, so we were just going to sign up anyway because we were already planning to be a part of it. However, once I found out how many homes surrounding ours also weren't in the HOA, I started having doubts. We're pretty much right in the middle of the no HOA homes, so my concern is that if we sign up, we'd be subjecting ourselves to enforceable rules that many of our neighbors wouldn't be subjected to. So far, only 5 of those homes have voluntarily joined. I realize the benefits of an HOA with helping to keep your neighborhood nice and funding improvements and whatnot, but then I've also heard stories of how they recently approved someone's paint color and then tried fighting it after it was painted because they didn't agree with the shade of the color they approved. That's the kind of pettiness that I don't want to subject ourselves to if our immediate neighbor can do the same exact thing with no repercussions. What to do? Has anyone else experienced this type of thing? An update. We're going to wait it out and not willingly join. If it comes to being forced to join somehow, then yeah, so be it. But yes, it does not make sense to willingly give up some rights just for the sake of joining with no benefits to it. It doesn't provide any benefits like mowing or trash or anything else like that. We'll just be good and mindful neighbors, as we usually are, and hopefully have no problems. We're even willing to make donations to the community fund and whatnot. For the most part, it seems like the current HOA board is hands-off and may just let you be, but like many have said on here, board members change and it only takes one to muck things up. There's no telling what the future board will be like or what changes they'll propose. This commenter says, "Dear HOA, LOL, no, nice. HOA has $300,000 in reserves and isn't improving the neighborhood. Thoughts?" Posted by Varen129. I'm a recent first-time homeowner in a fairly rural neighborhood as of January 2022, and I'm new to dealing with homeowners associations. Mine is behaving in a way that's left me frustrated with how they seem to be managing the yearly payments that we give them. But because I have no prior frame of reference for what's reasonable, I wanted to hear from people with more experience than I have. We pay our HOA $600 each year, and at today's meeting, they revealed they have over $300,000 in reserve accounts, comprised entirely of yearly HOA fees. They've accumulated so much that they've actually opened investment accounts for it. I recognize that an HOA will want to have some reserves on hand in case of an emergency, and I'm not opposed to HOAs in general, but the amount at issue here seems excessive. There are also a number of neighborhood improvements that seem like they should have been done before the HOA started to invest the money. To give a few examples, our neighborhood runs on well water, and if the power were to go out for a long period of time, there's no generator on the pump that would allow homes in the neighborhood to keep running water. Grass in the common areas is only mowed a few times a year, and not always completely. There's a large field in our neighborhood where the grass is routinely allowed to grow over a foot in length without being mowed for long periods of time. Ticks are a big problem here. There's a retention pond near our home that's been broken for a long time due to a mechanical failure, causing the water level to significantly drop. People who bought their homes expecting something near water have also been disappointed. Instead of hiring an engineer, HOA leadership felt that they could fix it personally as a DIY project with rocks and concrete, which, of course, did not fix the issue. Before I consider doing anything else, I just want someone to tell me whether I'm being reasonable. I generally try pretty hard to view people in a good light, but this just seems like a very lazy and conceited HOA. If they have such a large surplus and they aren't using it for anything, the least they could do is suspend our yearly payment. On the other hand, if this is basically par for the course with HOAs, maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Commenter drops this answer. This is the right answer. Not for emergencies, not surplus. It is money set aside to replace existing components, not to perform routine maintenance. Do you agree? Was being coerced into maintaining common area landscaping by CEH Parrott. Less than a year into the new home, there has been a couple interactions with neighbors or the developer over a section of grass between a sidewalk and the street. At first, we were led to believe that was our grass and responsibility. Okay, so we mow and we weed eat it. One night after weed eating, I leave, and I notice someone with a blower is blowing my area that I left some trimmings on the sidewalk. Okay, I get it. That should be kept clean. I find it kinda weird that they felt the need to do that, but okay. Today, I weed eat the section by the street, and then I run to the store. Afterwards, I need to blow it off still, but I'll do it when I get back. I am pulling out of my driveway, and some guy in a truck stops in the street. He backs up, and he rolls his window down to start literally yelling about the grass and the trimmings that need to be blown. I just say, yes, I'll blow it away, and he yells, "We have an HOA." His tone was pretty negative the entire time. Not the way you'd expect a stranger to speak to another stranger. Well, he doesn't even appear to live on my street. So this interaction rubs me the wrong way. I come back, I pull up the HOA regulations filed with the county, and I proceed to scour the sections about the common area and the owner landscaping responsibilities. Come to find out, the area in question is most definitely a common area, as defined in Article 1, Section D, and is to be maintained by the association, as defined in Article 1, Section E, and Article 4, Subsection 5. So I get it, that area is a common area. It should be clean and maintained professionally, as mandated in the HOA regulations. I'll leave it for the professionals. My mistake. Maybe I should send them a bill for 125% of my labor. I mean, they would send me one if I was in violation of my landscaping and they had to maintain it. Commenter says, don't give them the idea to fine you for doing unauthorized mowing and so on in a public area. And OP replies, touche. Yeah, don't give them any extra power over you because, as we all know, HOAs never abuse their power, right? HOA Karen finds me and tries to cover it up, but I'm not even in the HOA. Click the video on your screen, you don't want to miss this story, and I'll see you there.